The night Rowan told me to sleep in the basement, I almost laughed. Almost. Because there's something darkly funny about being banished to the lower level of a house you helped design by a man who promised you'd never be small again. But I didn't laugh. I just smiled, nodded, and dragged my suitcase down those cold marble stairs while thunder cracked outside like the sky itself was breaking. You want to know the real kicker? He wasn't even angry. That would have been easier. Anger burns hot and fast. This was different. This was calm. Calculated. The kind of cruelty that wears a $3,000 suit and speaks in soft tones. If you need space, Amira, the basement suite is perfectly comfortable. No need to be dramatic. Dramatic. That word hung in the air like smoke. I just found another woman's earring on our dresser. Diamond studs. Expensive. Not mine. And when I held them up, trembling, he looked at me the way you'd look at a leaking faucet, annoyed but not particularly concerned. You've been comfortable here, he'd said, pouring himself whiskey. Let's not make this ugly. Before I go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you signed away pieces of yourself without even knowing it? Have you ever loved someone who turned that love into a leash? If you have, or if you know someone who has, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's a roadmap for anyone who's ever been told they're nothing without someone else's name. The basement was finished, sure. Leather couch. Flat-screen TV. A wet bar Rowan installed for guests who never came. But it smelled like abandonment down there. Like all the things we don't want to see, tucked away, where polite company won't stumble over them. I set my suitcase down and sat on the edge of that couch, staring at nothing. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. That's when I saw it. His office door, usually locked tight as a vault, was slightly open. Just a crack. The storm must have knocked something loose, because Rowan never left anything unlocked. Control was his religion, and locked doors were his prayers. I should have gone to bed. Should have pulled that scratchy guest blanket over my head and pretended tomorrow would be different. But something pulled me toward that door. Maybe it was the earring still burning a hole in my pocket. Maybe it was 3 years of swallowing explanations that never quite added up. Or maybe it was just that I was tired of being comfortable. I pushed the door open. The office smelled like leather and his cologne, that expensive stuff that costs more per ounce than groceries for a week. His desk was neat. Too neat. Everything in its place, like a museum display of a life that looked perfect from the outside. Then I saw the drawer. Half open. And on top of a stack of folders, a yellow sticky note with Rowan's handwriting. Aniv plus initials. My hands started shaking before my brain even caught up. Our anniversary was June 12th. His initials RH mine AK, or at least they used to be before I became Mrs. Hale and lost even that small piece of identity. I shouldn't have touched his computer. I knew that. But when you've been erased slowly, one signature at a time, one simplified document at a time, eventually you stop caring about should and start caring about truth. The password screen glowed in the dark. I typed 0612 RHAK. The computer unlocked. What would you do if you discovered the person you loved most had been systematically erasing you? Would you run? Fight? Or would you do what I did, sit down in that expensive leather chair and start reading? The first time I saw Rowan Hale, I was holding a tray of champagne flutes that cost more than my rent. It was one of those charity galas where rich people write checks they'll never miss and feel good about themselves for a night. I was 26, exhausted from working 2 jobs, and my feet hurt in the cheap heels I'd bought specifically for catering gigs like this one. He walked past me twice before he stopped. Most people at those events looked through servers like we were furniture. But Rowan looked at me. Really looked. Not the creepy kind of looking that made your skin crawl. The kind that made you stand up straighter, without meaning to. What are you reading? He asked. Just like that. No introduction. No small talk about the weather or the shrimp cocktail. I must have looked confused, because he pointed at my apron pocket where the corner of a paperback was sticking out. I'd stuffed it there during my break, hoping to steal 5 minutes between courses. Oh. It's just a mystery novel. Nothing fancy. I felt stupid the second the words left my mouth. Nothing fancy. Like I needed to apologize for not reading whatever rich people read. But Rowan smiled. Not the polite smile people give servers. A real one. I love a good mystery. The kind where you think you know who did it, but the author's been lying to you the whole time. He paused, then extended his hand. I'm Rowan. I should have seen the metaphor in that moment. Should have heard the warning bells. But when someone makes you feel seen after years of being invisible, you don't ask questions. You just bask in it like sunlight. That night, after the gala ended and I was hauling trash bags to the service exit, he found me again. Offered to carry the bags. Can you imagine? A man in a suit that probably cost $5,000, carrying garbage. I told him no 3 times before I let him help. And then he asked for my number. Why? I asked because I genuinely didn't understand. Men like him didn't date women like me. That's just how the world worked. Because, he said, I'd like to know how that mystery ends. And I'd like to buy you a coffee where you can actually sit down and enjoy it. We had coffee the next day. Then dinner. Then a weekend at his beach house where the ocean stretched out like a promise. Rowan had this way of making everything feel intentional. Like he'd thought about it, planned it, wanted it specifically. When he talked about his work, real estate development, urban renewal projects, buildings that changed skylines, his eyes lit up. But when he talked about me, about us, they softened. You're different, Amira, he told me 3 months in. We were on his terrace, watching the city lights below. You've worked for everything. You understand what it means to build something from nothing. I never thought of my life that way. I just thought of it as surviving. But Rowan made survival sound noble. He made my 2 jobs and my mother's medical debt sound like battle scars I should wear proudly. 6 months later, he proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or on a billboard like some grand gesture. He proposed in my tiny apartment, the one with the leaking faucet and the neighbor who played drums at midnight. He got down on one knee right there on my worn carpet and said, Amira, I don't want you to struggle anymore. Marry me. Let me give you peace. Peace. God, that word. After years of juggling shifts and dodging collection calls, peace sounded like heaven. I said yes before he even finished opening the ring box. The wedding was small, elegant. His idea. I want it to be about us, he'd said. Not some circus for people we barely know. I agreed because it made sense. Because I was still learning that when Rowan said us, he usually meant me. Looking back now, sitting in that basement with thunder shaking the windows, I could see all the moments I'd missed. The way he'd smiled when I quit my first job. How he'd insisted I didn't need my own bank account when we got married. It's simpler this way, love. Everything in one place. Easier to manage. I trusted him. Because when someone rescues you from drowning, you don't question which direction they're swimming. You just hold on. But here's what nobody tells you about rescue. Sometimes the person pulling you out of the water is the same person who'll push you back in. And by the time you realize it, you're so far from shore you can't remember which way is up. Would you have seen the signs I missed? Or would you have been just as blind? Drop a comment and let me know. The computer screen glowed in front of me, full of folders I shouldn't open. Full of answers I wasn't sure I wanted. But my hand was already on the mouse, and somewhere upstairs, Rowan was probably asleep in our bed, the bed I'd been exiled from. I clicked on the first folder. It was labeled Trust Documents Revised. My heart stopped, then started again, harder. The house Rowan bought after our wedding was everything I'd never dared to dream about. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. A kitchen with marble countertops and appliances I had to Google how to use. A walk-in closet bigger than my old apartment. He presented it to me with keys tied in a silk ribbon, like something from a movie. This is ours, he'd said, kissing my forehead. Our fresh start. I cried. Actually cried. Because I'd spent so many years in places that didn't belong to me, always one bad month away from eviction. And now I had this. We had this. Or so I thought. The first few months were perfect. Too perfect, maybe. I'd wake up to sunrise over the mountains and think I'd somehow stumbled into someone else's life. Rowan would leave for work with a kiss and come home with flowers. On weekends, we'd host dinner parties where I'd meet his colleagues and their wives, women with diamond tennis bracelets and easy laughs who made charity work sound like a hobby. But slowly, things started shifting. Small things at first. Rowan suggesting I didn't need to look for a new job right away. Take your time, he'd say. Enjoy the house. You've earned a break. Then it became, why would you work when you don't have to? Let me take care of you. It sounded loving. Generous even. But what I didn't realize was that every day I stayed home, every day I didn't earn my own money, I was becoming smaller. Less visible. Like a photograph left in the sun, slowly fading. The dinner parties got worse. I'd try to contribute to conversations about investments or development projects, and Rowan would pat my hand. Amira's still learning how all this works, he'd say with a smile that looked warm but felt cold. It's complicated stuff. His colleagues would nod sympathetically, and their wives would change the subject to something they thought I'd understand better. Recipes. Decorating. Safe topics for the woman who used to serve champagne and now drank it. Then came the paperwork. Always more paperwork. Rowan would bring home documents, usually late at night when I was tired. Just sign here, love. It's routine. Lawyer stuff for the properties. I'd sign because I trusted him. Because questioning your husband about legal documents felt like admitting you didn't trust him, and what kind of marriage was that? One night, about a year in, I was organizing files trying to feel useful, and I noticed something. My name wasn't on the house deed. I pulled up the digital copy Rowan had sent me after closing, and there it was. Rowan Hale, sole owner. I must have looked at it wrong before, I told myself. Must have misunderstood. But when I asked him about it over dinner, keeping my voice light and casual, he barely looked up from his steak. It's for liability protection, Amira. If something happens with the business, they can't touch the house this way. I'm protecting us. Us. But only his name on the paper. Shouldn't my name be on it too? I asked. I mean, just in case? He set down his fork. Slowly. In case of what? In case I suddenly disappear? Die in a plane crash. He laughed, but it wasn't a warm sound. You're being paranoid. The lawyers set it up this way for a reason. Trust me. Trust me. Those two words became his favorite weapon. The bank accounts came next. I'd been using our joint account for everything, groceries, gas, small purchases. Then one day my card declined at the store. I called Rowan, embarrassed, and he sighed like I'd done something wrong. There was a security issue. The account's temporarily frozen while they sort it out. Use the household card instead. He'd sent me a new card the next day. Black. Sleek. My name embossed on it. It felt like reassurance. What I didn't know then was that the household card wasn't connected to any account in my name. It was linked to one of his business subsidiaries. A card he could deactivate with a phone call. A leash disguised as generosity. I started noticing other things. How he'd schedule important meetings during times I'd mentioned wanting to visit my sister. How he'd book vacations without asking my input, then act hurt if I seemed less than thrilled. I'm trying to do something nice for you, and you're complaining, he'd say. And I'd apologize. Always apologize. At parties, I learned to stay quiet. Learned that smiling and nodding was easier than being corrected in front of people. Learned that Amira doesn't really follow business news was code for she's decorative, not functional. The worst part? I started believing it. Started thinking maybe I really didn't understand. Maybe I was lucky just to be here, in this beautiful house, with this successful man. Maybe questioning anything was just ungrateful. Then came the night with the liability forms. Rowan walked in late, tie loose, carrying his briefcase like it weighed 100 pounds. He dropped a stack of papers on the dining table where I'd set out his favorite meal, roasted salmon, asparagus, the works. Sign these, he said, not even acknowledging the food. The lawyers need you off the trust accounts. Liability thing. New regulations. I picked up the papers, trying to read through the legal language that might as well have been another language. But I thought the trusts were joint? For both of us. They were. Now they're not. It's cleaner this way. He poured himself scotch, his back to me. You'll still have full access to the household fund. Nothing changes for you day to day. Everything was changing. I could feel it.
But I signed anyway.
Because by then I'd learned that pushing back meant lectures about how I didn't understand, how he was protecting me, how I should just be grateful. Have you ever felt like you're disappearing inside your own life? Like every day you're a little less real? That's what that house became. A beautiful prison where the walls were made of my own signatures. I didn't know it yet, but every document I'd signed was a brick in a wall Rowan was building around me. And I'd helped him lay every single one. The folder on his computer titled Trust Documents, Revised, sat open in front of me. Inside were files with dates going back 3 years. 3 years. Our entire marriage. I clicked on the oldest one, and my hand started shaking so hard I almost couldn't control the mouse. The first page showed a trust transfer. Property assets moved from joint ownership, R&A Hale, to Rowan Hale Trust, sole beneficiary. The date? 2 weeks after our wedding. The thunder had stopped, but a new storm was building inside me. I sat in Rowan's leather chair, the one that probably cost more than my car, and opened folder after folder. Every click was a wound. Every document confirmed it. I'd been erased, carefully, methodically. Rowan had organized my erasure with color-coded precision, each file like a gravestone marking the death of something I hadn't known was gone. Trust Amendment 2022. Legal jargon swam before me, but the words that mattered burned through. Removal of secondary beneficiary, sole discretion of primary trustee. My name appeared once, under former joint holder. Former. In another file, bank statements, property transfers, I saw how he'd shifted everything out of our joint ownership. Every account, every property, scrubbed clean of me. An Excel sheet titled Asset Restructuring Timeline laid it out in brutal clarity. Notes on each entry read like confessions from a con artist. Removed age from deed. No resistance. No resistance. As if I'd just politely stepped out of my own life. Another note. Made favorite meal first. I could still taste that dinner. The steak he'd grilled, the wine he'd poured, right before he had me sign away half our home. He'd weaponized comfort. Turned love into a strategy. My hands trembled as I opened the next folder, insurance and contingencies. Inside were drafts of a prenup. 5 versions. We'd never signed one, or so I'd believed. I remembered asking him before the wedding. I don't need a prenup, Amira, he'd said, smiling. I'm not planning on this ending. Are you? But he had planned for it. Every clause, every restriction, each draft more brutal than the last. The final version even had a non-disclosure clause, silencing me forever if we divorced. He wasn't preparing for heartbreak. He was preparing to erase me completely. Then came the emails.
Hundreds of them.
Conversations between Rowan and his high-priced lawyer, Marcus Vaughn, about asset protection. The first one hit like a slap. Wife is compliant. Begin separation of properties before she becomes aware of total portfolio value. Compliant. That's what I was to him. Not Amira. Not his wife. Just compliant. Another email detailed how to manipulate me. Discuss stress, present documents while she's sympathetic. Effective. He'd studied me. Used my empathy like a key to unlock my trust, over and over, until I'd signed away everything that mattered. But there was more. A folder named Zurich, private banking. Inside, statements from a Swiss account. Millions, money I didn't know existed. Funneled offshore. The transfers went regularly to a name I didn't recognize, Miranda Castellano. I searched her. A blonde in designer sunglasses on a yacht, champagne in hand. Her bio read luxury real estate consultant. And that's when I remembered the earring. The diamond stud I'd found on our dresser. I pulled it from my pocket and stared at it until my eyes burned. It was hers. The woman who got wire transfers while I got condescension. The woman Rowan was building a new life for while he buried me alive in a basement. How do you breathe when you realize your marriage was a transaction? That the man who promised you forever was drafting your financial obituary behind your back? I didn't scream. Didn't break the computer. Didn't wake him. Instead, I opened a new email account, one he didn't know existed, and began uploading. Every document, every spreadsheet, every lie, evidence of the empire he'd built on deceit, saved under a password he'd never guess. Because anger is loud, but revenge, real revenge, is quiet, patient, built like architecture, piece by piece, until it stands tall enough to crush whoever thought they could outsmart you. The first light of dawn crept through the window. I heard footsteps upstairs. Rowan, the same man who'd exiled me to this basement, now coming to check if his punishment had taken root. But he didn't know that last night's version of me was gone, that the compliant wife had died between folder tabs and legal memos. When he appeared, coffee in hand, he smiled like a man who thought he'd already won. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Better than I expected," I said. "I think I'll stay down here a few more nights." He looked pleased. Thought I was accepting defeat. He had no idea that I was sitting there with the keys to his kingdom. That while he believed he'd buried me under his lies, I'd already started digging my way out, with his secrets in my hands. Would you have confronted him right then? Or waited, gathering proof? Tell me in the comments, because what I did next didn't just change my life. It ended his illusion of control. And there was no going back. Living in the basement became my new normal, and the weird thing? Rowan seemed happier with me down there. He'd check in once a day, always with the same concerned expression, asking if I was ready to talk about things rationally. As if I was the irrational one. As if finding your husband's mistress's jewelry was something you should just get over with a good night's sleep. I played the part, nodded,
Told him I needed more time.
and every night after he went to bed, I'd slip back into his office and skim more documents. I'd bought a portable scanner from a thrift store 2 towns over, paid cash, and kept it hidden behind old Christmas decorations he'd never touch. Every night was the same routine. Wait until I heard him snoring upstairs, ease open that office door, and spend 2 hours feeding paper through a machine that sounded way too loud in the silence. Bank statements, property deeds, email printouts, contract drafts. I scanned everything, uploaded everything, organized everything into folders with dates and labels. Evidence wasn't just a word anymore. It was my lifeline. 3 weeks into my basement exile, my sister called.
Tanya.
She'd been asking to visit for months, but Rowan always had a reason why it wasn't a good time. Too busy with work. House wasn't ready for guests. We had plans that weekend. Always something. But now I was desperate to see her, to talk to someone who remembered me before I became Mrs. Rowan Hale. I mentioned it to him over dinner. We were eating separately by then, him in the dining room, me in the basement, but he'd come down to collect my plate, playing the dutiful husband for nobody's benefit but his own. "Rowan, I'd like to visit Tanya next week. Just for a few days. I think some time away might help." He set the plate down slowly. His jaw did this thing, this tiny clench that I'd learned meant he was calculating his response. "Amira, I don't think that's a good idea right now. You're emotional. What are you going to tell her? That we're having problems? You know Tanya never liked me. She'll just make things worse. She's my sister. I need to see her. And I'm your husband. Doesn't that count for something?" His voice was soft, but there was steel underneath. "Listen, if you need space, you have it. The whole basement. But running to your sister every time we hit a rough patch? That's not how marriages work. A rough patch. That's what he called systematic financial abuse and infidelity. A rough patch." "I'm going," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Rowan laughed. Actually laughed. It was a low, patronizing sound that made my skin crawl. "With what money, Amira? The household card? The one I manage?
Come on.
Be reasonable." And there it was. The truth we'd been dancing around for weeks. I wasn't a wife. I was an employee. A dependent. A prisoner in a basement with a leather couch and a flat-screen TV. "If you want space," he continued, heading toward the stairs, "you can have all the space you need right here. No need to make this dramatic." After he left, I sat there for a long time. The walls felt closer than they had before. The ceiling lower. That's when I understood what he'd done. The basement wasn't punishment. It was preparation. He was conditioning me, showing me what life would be like if I left. No money, no property, no proof of anything. Just a woman with a story nobody would believe because her name wasn't on a single piece of paper. But he'd made one mistake. He'd given me time.
Time to think. Time to plan.
Time to discover exactly what he'd been hiding. And most importantly, time to get angry. Not the loud, messy kind of angry that burns out fast, but the cold, focused kind that builds plans in the dark. That night, I didn't go back to his office. Instead, I pulled out my phone and searched Women's Legal Aid and my city name. The first result was a nonprofit downtown. Free consultations. Confidential. The kind of place women go when they have nowhere else to turn. I almost called right then, but something stopped me. I wasn't ready. Didn't have enough yet. Rowan was smart, connected, rich. If I was going to fight him, I needed more than anger and a cloud drive. I needed a strategy. Needed allies. Needed to be absolutely certain that when I finally made my move, it would count. The next morning, I made breakfast for the first time in weeks. Went upstairs. Set out eggs and toast like nothing was wrong. Rowan looked surprised but pleased. "This is nice," he said, kissing the top of my head. "I knew you'd come around." I smiled.
Poured his coffee.
And when he left for work, I pulled up that Women's Legal Aid website again and filled out a contact form.
Name.
Phone number. Brief description of situation. And in that little box where it asked, "What do you need help with?" I typed, "My husband has been systematically removing me from all our shared assets. I have documentation. I need advice." I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello. Is this Amira Hale?" The voice was older, female, steady. "My name is Lucinda Vale. I'm a retired estate attorney. I volunteer with the Women's Legal Aid Center, and I got your form. Do you have time to talk?" Did I have time? I had nothing but time. Time in a basement. Time watching my marriage decompose. Time wondering how I'd become so small. "Yes," I said. "I have time." "Good. Because from what you described, we need to move carefully. Can you meet me tomorrow? There's a coffee shop on Maple Street, quiet place. Nobody will pay attention. 2:00.
My heart was pounding. This was real now.
Not just anger and late-night document scanning.
Real.
I'll be there. Amira? Lucinda's voice softened. Whatever you're going through, whatever he's done, it's not your fault. And it's not over. Do you understand?
I didn't understand.
Not yet. But I wanted to.
God, I wanted to.
Bring whatever documentation you have, she continued. Digital, paper, doesn't matter. Everything helps. And Amira? Don't tell him you're meeting with me. Don't tell anyone. After we hung up, I sat there holding my phone like it might disappear. Like this whole conversation might have been something I imagined. But it wasn't. Tomorrow at 2:00, I'd walk out of this house for the first time in weeks. I'd sit across from a woman who knew how to fight men like Rowan. And I'd start building my way out of this basement. That night, Rowan came home with flowers. Roses. My favorite. "I've been thinking," he said, handing them to me. "Maybe I've been too hard on you. This whole thing with us, it's just stress. Work stress. I'm sorry."
Sorry.
After 3 years of lies. After erasing my name from everything we'd built together. After installing a mistress in properties bought with money I'd helped him feel secure enough to invest.
Sorry.
I took the flowers. Smiled. "Thank you. I appreciate that." He pulled me into a hug, and I let him, even though every muscle in my body wanted to run. "We're going to be okay," he whispered into my hair. "I promise." But promises, I'd learned, were just words men like Rowan used when they needed you compliant for a little longer. And I was done being compliant. Tomorrow I'd meet Lucinda Vale. Lucinda Vale looked nothing like I expected. I'd imagined some corporate lawyer type with a power suit and intimidating briefcase. Instead, she was in her 60s, wearing jeans and a cardigan, gray hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She was already sitting in the corner of the coffee shop when I arrived, a mug in front of her, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Amira?" She looked up, and her eyes were kind but sharp. The kind that saw through bullshit instantly. I nodded, sliding into the seat across from her. My hands were shaking. I'd told Rowan I was going grocery shopping, and the lie sat heavy in my chest even though it shouldn't have. Even though he'd been lying to me for 3 years. First thing, Lucinda said, pushing a coffee toward me that she'd already ordered. Breathe. I know this feels enormous right now, but you're not alone anymore. Okay. I nodded again, not trusting my voice. Second thing. Did you bring the documentation? I pulled out a flash drive from my purse, handed it to her like I was passing state secrets. In a way, I guess I was. Everything I could find. Financial statements, emails, property records, trust documents. There's a lot. Lucinda plugged the drive into her laptop. Started clicking through folders. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. Saw her mouse move faster. After 5 minutes of silence that felt like an hour, she looked up. Amira, this is bad. But bad in a way that's actually good for you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I didn't. Not really. How could bad be good? Your husband has been sloppy, she continued. Arrogant men usually are. They think they're so smart that they don't need to be careful. He's left a trail a mile wide. These emails alone, she tapped the screen, show clear intent to defraud you of marital assets. The forged signatures on the trust amendments? That's illegal. Not just divorce court illegal. Criminal illegal. My mouth went dry. Criminal? Potentially. We'd need to verify the signatures, but if he signed your name to legal documents without your permission, that's fraud.
Forgery.
The kind of thing prosecutors like, especially when the person doing it is rich and thinks he's untouchable. For the first time in weeks, something that felt almost like hope flickered in my chest. Almost. Because hope was dangerous. Hope could get crushed. Lucinda must have seen it on my face because she reached across and squeezed my hand. Listen to me carefully. If you want justice, you'll need paper more than anger. You'll need documentation, timestamps, proof of intent. The good news? You already have it. But we need more. We need to establish a pattern that even his expensive lawyers can't explain away.
How?
My voice came out smaller than I wanted. We build a case. Quietly. Methodically. No confrontations. No dramatic exits. You go back to that basement, and you play the role of dutiful wife while we shore up every piece of evidence. Can you do that? Could I? Could I smile at Rowan over breakfast while planning his downfall? Could I sleep in that basement knowing I was building something that would eventually bring his whole world crashing down? Yes, I said. I can do that. Lucinda smiled, and it was fierce.
Good.
Because here's what most people don't understand about fighting powerful men. They expect you to be emotional.
Loud.
Easy to dismiss. But when you're calm, when you have documentation, when you've done your homework, that's when they panic. That's when mistakes happen. She introduced me to someone that day. A man named Milo, who looked like he belonged in a college computer lab, not fighting legal battles. Skinny, early 30s, wearing a hoodie with coffee stains. But Lucinda said he was the best digital forensics specialist she knew. Can you get me access to his computer again? Milo asked. Even for 20 minutes? Maybe. He's been leaving the office door open more lately. Thinks I'm broken, I guess. Milo pulled out a tiny USB drive. This is a data cloner. You plug it in, wait 5 minutes, it copies everything, every deleted file, every browser history, every hidden folder. He'll never know it was there. The drive felt heavier than it should in my palm. This was it. The point of no return. If Rowan found out, if any of this went wrong, I'd lose everything. But I'd already lost everything, hadn't I? He'd just been nice enough to let me keep sleeping in his basement while he counted the ways he'd erased me. I'll do it, I said. That night, Rowan worked late. I heard him in the office around 11, typing away, probably moving more money into accounts I'd never see. Around midnight, he came down to the basement, stood at the bottom of the stairs like he was checking on livestock. You doing okay down here? He asked.
Fine.
Just watching TV.
Good.
That's good. He hesitated, and for a second, he almost looked guilty. Almost. I know this has been hard, Amira. But we're going to work through it. I promise. Another promise. Another lie dressed up as love. After he went to bed, I waited. Counted to 1,000. Then crept upstairs, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. His office door was open. His computer still on, screensaver bouncing across the monitor. My heart hammered so loud I was sure he'd hear it from the bedroom. I plugged in the drive. A small light blinked. 5 minutes, Milo had said. I stood there, frozen, watching that light blink while time crawled. Every sound in the house became a threat. The refrigerator humming, pipes settling, my own breathing too loud in the silence. 4 minutes. 3. The stairs creaked, and my whole body went cold. Was he coming back down?
But no.
Just the house. Just Oldwood doing what Oldwood does. 2 minutes.
1.
The light went solid green. I yanked out the drive, shoved it in my pocket, and practically ran back to the basement. The next day, I met Milo at a library 3 towns over. Handed him the drive like it was made of gold. He plugged it into his laptop right there between the mystery novels and biographies, and his eyes went wide. Holy shit, he whispered.
Sorry. I mean, wow.
He looked at me. Did you know he has encrypted files labeled insurance policy? I didn't, but I could guess what they contained. Probably more proof of his planning, more evidence of my systematic erasure. I'll need a few days to go through all this, Milo said. But from what I'm seeing already, you've got him.
You've really got him, Milo said.
I wanted to feel triumphant, but all I felt was exhaustion, of fighting, pretending, surviving. Then he showed me more, deleted emails, offshore accounts, plans to move money, even research on divorce attorneys. Rowan had been preparing to discard me for months, ensuring I'd be left with nothing. The basement hadn't been punishment. It was practice for erasure. Would you have kept going? Or would that have been the breaking point? Tell me in the comments, because what I did next took everything I had left. Lucinda called 2 days later with a plan. She'd filed for a temporary financial freeze to stop him from moving or hiding assets while the divorce moves forward. The USB Milo held was the proof. Her legal strategy would force Rowan's hand and make it clear I wasn't the compliant wife anymore. The motion went in on Tuesday. By Wednesday his lawyers would know, and by nightfall the man who sent me to the basement would finally feel real fear. I was done waiting. The call came at 3:15. I was in the basement pretending to fold laundry when I heard Rowan's car screech into the driveway, tires on gravel, door slamming, footsteps pounding down the hall. He appeared at the top of the stairs, his calm, polished mask gone. "What the hell did you do?" he hissed. I looked up. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play stupid. You filed a financial freeze on our accounts? On my business?" "Funny. Ours only when it suited him." "I just followed your advice," I said. "Protecting assets. Keeping things clean. What's good for you should be good for me, right?" He stepped down a few stairs, eyes blazing. "You have any idea what you've done? I have investors waiting." "No," I said, standing. "You did that. I just made sure you couldn't hide what's supposed to be ours." He laughed without humor. "You think you're entitled to what I built? You've lived off my money, my house, my success, and this is how you repay me? Your money, your house. That's all it's ever been to you." I moved closer. He backed up a step. I was decoration. The smiling wife who didn't ask questions. "You knew what this was," he snapped. "I saved you from that miserable life. 2 jobs, drowning in debt. And this is my thanks. Saved me. Like love was charity. Like my loyalty was a debt I owed." "I want a divorce," I said. Something flickered in his face, then hardened.
"Fine.
But you'll leave with what you came in with, nothing. Everything's protected.
Trusts.
Accounts. You think your freeze scares me? My lawyers will have it lifted by Monday." He'd known, of course. Maybe even expected this. But I'd been waiting too. "Maybe," I said, "or maybe my lawyer knows things yours don't." His eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you got sloppy." I showed him the photo on my phone, his computer screen with Miranda Castellano's wire transfers. Marital funds to your girlfriend.
Fraud.
Forged signatures on trust documents. More fraud. Offshore accounts? I'm sure the IRS would love those. The color drained from his face. You went through my computer. You had no right. I had every right. Marital property, remember? He leaned back, recalculating, mask flickering. Amira, he said softly, let's not do this. We can work out a fair settlement. You walk away comfortable. No need to make this ugly. There was his pattern. Charm when threats failed. Negotiation when control slipped. But I'd studied him too long to fall for it. You're right, I said. No need for ugly. You'll cooperate with the freeze, give full disclosure, and agree to a fair division of assets. And if I don't, then everything I found goes to the district attorney.
Forgery. Fraud.
Hidden accounts. You choose. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. The real me had been buried under his control, but she was back now. You think you can threaten me? He said. I think your lawyers will tell you exactly how much trouble you're in. And I think keeping me in that basement was your worst mistake. It gave me time to find everything you tried to hide. He pushed past me, heading upstairs. At the top he turned. You're nothing without my name, Amira. You'll always be nothing. But his voice cracked. That crack was everything, the sound of fear beneath the fury. After he left, I sat back down, shaking. Standing up to someone who's spent years breaking you takes everything. And I'd just spent it all. My phone buzzed. Lucinda. His attorney called. They want to meet. That means they're worried. What happens now? Now we let them worry. When they see what you have, they'll negotiate for real.
Can you hold on?
Could I? Stay in this house with a man who hated me now, who might be plotting his next move. Sleep in that basement, knowing the walls still held his shadow. Yes, I said. I can hold on. Because giving up meant losing everything. And I'd fought too hard for that. Have you ever had to be brave when every instinct screamed to run? Ever stood your ground knowing it might cost you everything? That's where I was, on the edge of victory or complete destruction. The hearing for the financial freeze was set for next week. Until then, I'd stay put, document everything, wait for Rowan's next mistake. Because men like him always make one more, always push one step too far. And when he did, I'd be ready. What would you do if you were me? Stay and fight, or take what you could and run? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because what happened at that hearing would decide the rest of my life. And Rowan Hale, for all his money and power, was about to learn one final lesson. Never back a woman into a corner unless you're absolutely sure she'll stay there. I wasn't staying. Not anymore. Rowan's new lawyer wasn't Marcus Vaughn anymore. This one was sharper, colder, Stuart Brennan, a name that came with headlines and $600 hours. The kind of man who specialized in cleaning up rich men's messes. Lucinda wasn't impressed. Expensive means desperate, she said. He knows he's exposed. The days between the basement confrontation and the hearing crawled by. Rowan and I existed in the same house like ghosts, passing without words, without even eye contact. But something was shifting. His PR team went into overdrive. Charity appearances, puff pieces, photo ops. He was rebuilding his image before the fall. Then Milo called. You need to see this. He'd found deleted emails, Rowan corresponding with a forensic accountant about wife-proofing his assets. That's what he called it. Wife-proofing. 6 months before everything fell apart, he'd already been protecting himself from me. Then Milo found more. A Delaware corporation, 3 properties quietly moved under its name, 1 shareholder, Rowan Hale. He'd done it 8 months after our wedding. While I was still imagining forever, he was already building the escape hatch. The hearing was Friday morning. Lucinda met me outside the courthouse in a gray suit, hair pulled tight. Stay calm. He'll try to make you look greedy. We'll show the truth. Inside, the courtroom was small, tired, fluorescent lights, dull wood. Rowan sat at the defense table, Brennan beside him, another lawyer in tow. He didn't look at me. Judge Patricia Moreno presided. Mid-50s, sharp-eyed, no patience for theatrics. Mrs. Hale seeks a temporary freeze on assets pending divorce, she said. Mr. Hale's counsel argues it's unjustified. Let's hear your cases. Brennan stood, smooth as marble. Your Honor, this is a vindictive action by a soon-to-be ex-wife looking for leverage. Mr. Hale is a respected businessman, and this freeze harms legitimate operations, hurting employees and investors alike. He painted me like a vengeful gold digger, a woman trying to ruin a good man. Then Lucinda rose, calm, measured, deadly precise. Mrs. Hale isn't trying to harm her husband's business. She's trying to stop him from continuing a 3-year pattern of fraudulent asset removal. One by one, she laid the bricks: property transfers, account closures, trust amendments, deleted emails about wife-proofing, offshore research, wire transfers to Miranda Castellano. Each piece built the wall higher. I watched Rowan's jaw tighten, Brennan whisper something fast and sharp, but Lucinda didn't stop. We have evidence of forged signatures, Your Honor. Digital metadata shows Mrs. Hale's signature used on documents she never saw, all from Mr. Hale's computer. Judge Moreno leaned forward. You're alleging forgery? Yes, Your Honor. Brennan stood. Speculation. Electronic signatures. Did your client have authorization to sign his wife's name? The judge interrupted. The silence that followed could have drowned us all. Rowan stared at the table. Brennan hesitated. We'll need to review specifics, he muttered. I bet you will, Judge Moreno said coolly. The freeze remains. Mr. Hale will provide full financial disclosure within 30 days. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, trusts, all of it. Hide anything, and this becomes far more serious. Are we clear? Rowan nodded once, jaw clenched. Mrs. Hale, same for you. Full disclosure from both sides. Next hearing in 6 weeks. The gavel fell. It was done. Or just beginning. Outside, Lucinda squeezed my shoulder. That went better than well. The judge saw straight through him. Now he's trapped. He has to show everything. I didn't feel triumphant. Just empty. What now? Now he decides whether to fight or fold. If he keeps fighting, discovery will tear everything apart. His lawyers will see the cost and push him to settle. I stood on the courthouse steps, the winter air biting my lungs, and thought of the woman I'd been 3 years ago, the one who thought love meant safety, trust meant loyalty. That woman was gone. The one standing here was forged in betrayal and quiet rage. Peace, I'd learned, isn't given. It's built. Sometimes from ashes. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost ignored it. Mrs. Hale? A trembling voice said. This is Miranda Castellano. I think we need to talk. Would you have taken that call? Would you have listened to your husband's mistress? Comment below, because what Miranda told me that afternoon cracked Rowan's defense wide open and turned the entire case upside down. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the next chapter is where quiet justice stops whispering and starts to roar. Where the man who thought he was untouchable learns the truth the hard way. Paper trails don't lie, even when everything else does. I met Miranda Castellano 2 days later at a park she'd chosen, neutral ground, open enough that neither of us could control the scene. She wasn't what I expected. No designer clothes, no makeup, just a scared girl in a hoodie who looked too young to be part of something this ugly. Thank you for coming, she said. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, I replied. Why did you call me? Her hands trembled. Because I'm terrified. I thought I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't. Rowan's been lying to both of us. And I think he's dangerous. Dangerous. The word cut through the morning air. She told me everything. How Rowan had claimed our marriage was just for show, that I didn't care, that we had some financial arrangement. She'd believed him. I should have hated her. But all I saw was another woman trapped in his web. When did it start? I asked. A year ago. I met him staging one of his properties. He was charming, said his marriage was over. I believed him. She swallowed hard. But last week, his lawyer called. They wanted me to sign a statement saying you knew about the affair. That you encouraged it. They wanted me to lie for him. Did you sign?
No.
Because I started reading the news about the financial freeze. The divorce. I realized he lied to me, too. He's using me to protect himself. She handed me her phone. The texts were threats disguised as instructions. Tell them it was consulting fees. If you don't back me up, you'll lose everything I've given you. Be smart, Miranda. My wife's trying to destroy me. Same tactics. Different victim. He asked me to move money, she said. To the Caymans. I refused, but I still have the account numbers, screenshots of the transfers he wanted. I stared at her, realizing we were both pieces on his board. Disposable. Why tell me all this? Because I'm scared. And because you didn't deserve it. Maybe I can help fix it. I called Lucinda right then. Put Miranda on the line. Let her explain everything, the affair, the threats, the offshore accounts. When Lucinda came back on, her voice was steady but sharp. This changes everything, she said. He's not just hiding assets. This is fraud. Money laundering. Witness tampering. We'll get her statement notarized and decide if we involve authorities. Either way, Rowan just made the biggest mistake of his life. That night, I sat in the basement for what I knew would be one of the last times. Tomorrow, Lucinda would file the emergency motion. Tomorrow, the quiet war I'd fought in shadows would go public. But then I thought of the gala, the annual charity event where Rowan's foundation praised his ethics. The same kind of event where we'd first met. The irony was too perfect. I called Lucinda back. Can we get in?
Probably. Why?
Because I want to hand-deliver something. What? The truth. In front of everyone who ever believed his lies. She hesitated. That'll burn every bridge.
Good.
I'm done with bridges. I want closure. Then we do it your way. The next 2 weeks blurred. Rowan's team tried to bury Miranda's testimony. Failed. The judge froze more accounts. Forensic accountants found 3 shell companies. Rowan vanished to a hotel downtown. His PR machine sputtered while investors and board members started whispering. The empire was cracking. Then came the night of the gala. I wore a simple black dress and carried one manila envelope. 20 pages of proof. No dramatics, no jewelry, just purpose. Inside the ballroom, champagne sparkled under chandeliers. Rowan stood at the podium, smiling that easy smile, talking about integrity in business. The applause after his speech was warm and hollow. When the crowd began to mingle, I walked to the event coordinator and handed her the envelope. This concerns Mr. Hale's foundation, I said clearly. It includes documentation of financial irregularities the board should review immediately. Her brow furrowed as she read the first page. Her face drained of color. Around us, cameras were streaming live. Rowan's head turned just in time to see the coordinator walking toward the board, papers in hand. His eyes met mine. For a long moment, the room faded. He knew. He knew. I didn't say a word. Didn't gloat. Just watched the whispers spread like wildfire. Watched his confidence fracture in front of donors, colleagues, the entire glittering facade he'd built on lies. Then I turned and walked out. No exit line, no applause. Just the sound of heels against marble and the quiet satisfaction of ending something the way it deserved to end, cleanly. Outside, the night air was cold, sharp, real. My phone buzzed. Lucinda. The live stream's exploding. His board's in emergency session. You did it. But I didn't feel triumphant. Just still. Because real justice doesn't roar, it settles. It returns what was stolen and silences what once screamed. What followed took weeks to unfold. Investigations, fallout, the slow dismantling of Rowan's empire. But that night, standing on those gala steps, I knew it was over. He hadn't just lost everything he tried to protect. He'd lost control of me. The one thing he never thought I'd reclaim. Would you have done it differently? Would you have stayed silent or made it public? Tell me in the comments. Because for me, that night wasn't revenge. It was release. And for the first time in years, I was free. 6 months after the gala, I sat in a small community center 3 hours north of the city, watching women fill out budget worksheets under humming fluorescent lights. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. Miss Kareem, one of them corrected herself, using my maiden name. How do you know if someone's hiding money from you? I smiled, real, not bitter. You look for gaps in statements. Property transfers you didn't sign. Accounts that suddenly get simplified. And you trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. The settlement had taken 3 months. Rowan's lawyers fought viciously, but the evidence was undeniable. Fake signatures, offshore transfers, Miranda's testimony. Judge Moreno saw through every sob story. I didn't get billions, but I got enough, half of the provable marital assets. A home, 2 properties, a portion of investments. Enough to live without fear, to help my sister, to start again. More than the money, I got my name back. My dignity. The proof that I hadn't imagined everything. Rowan's empire began to shrink. His board forced him to resign when investigations confirmed what we'd suspected: charity funds rerouted into shell accounts. He didn't go to jail, but fines, lost contracts, and the label, amid financial controversy, followed him everywhere. Miranda moved to Oregon. We exchanged thank you cards, 2 survivors acknowledging the wreckage and the escape. My new house was nothing like Rowan's mansion. It was small, with leaky faucets and creaking steps. But it was mine. My name on the deed. My peace. I began teaching financial literacy workshops, helping women who'd been erased from their own finances, explaining how to protect themselves. That's where I met Jennifer. Her husband had been simplifying their accounts. She stayed after class, fear flickering in her eyes. I'm scared to find out what's really happening, she whispered.
Fear is smart, I said.
But staying scared keeps you trapped.
Start documenting now.
Don't wait until you're in the basement. She gave me a small, knowing smile. My story had made national headlines. Billionaire's ex-wife exposes fraud at charity gala. I did one interview with a reporter who understood it wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. After that, I went quiet, because sometimes the loudest justice is the kind lived quietly. People often ask if I regret marrying Rowan. If I wish I'd seen the signs sooner. I don't know. The woman I was back then, she was reaching for safety after years of chaos. I can't hate her for wanting peace, even if she mistook control for love. But I can't be her anymore. Now I read everything twice. I ask questions.
I keep my own accounts.
Because peace isn't something you're given. It's something you build, brick by brick, document by document. Then last month I received a letter forwarded by my lawyer. A Swiss bank claimed a clerical error had left an old account in my name unclaimed. Inside, a few $100,000. I didn't believe it was an error. Maybe a forgotten account Rowan created, or one Miranda quietly fixed. Either way, it felt like the universe whispering, "You did the work. Here's your bonus." I used the money to start a small nonprofit, legal aid for women trapped in financially abusive marriages, helping them find lawyers like Lucinda and investigators like Milo. It's just me and 2 volunteers for now, but it's growing. Because I know what it's like to live in that basement, literally and metaphorically. To be told you're paranoid while someone erases your name 1 document at a time. To those women, I say, you're not crazy. You're not alone. Paper, patience, and proof can move mountains. I saw Rowan once, for months ago, in a downtown cafe. He looked older, deflated. We exchanged a silent nod. No anger, no words, just the quiet acknowledgement of everything between us. Sometimes I wonder if he understands what he did. Probably not. But it doesn't matter. His opinions stopped mattering the night I found out who he really was. The night I chose evidence over confrontation. The night I stopped being his wife and started being myself. In the evenings, when golden light fills my kitchen, I think about everything that had to break for me to get here. The illusions, the control, the version of me that thought love meant surrender. And I realize it was all worth it. Every terrifying moment, every sleepless night, every document scanned. Because beyond that breaking was this, a life that's actually mine. So if you're listening from your own basement, literal or not, hear me. You're stronger than you think. The proof exists. The help exists. And the person trying to erase you? They're not as smart as they believe. Start documenting. Start planning. Start believing that your life belongs to you. Quiet justice isn't revenge, it's reclamation. Taking back what was always yours. Your name, your truth, your peace. If this story touched you, share it.
Subscribe.
Comment. Tell me what resonated with you. What gave you hope? Because your stories fuel the next ones. Stories of people who fought quietly and won. And if someone's making you small, making your peace conditional, remember, basements are temporary. The strength you build there lasts forever. Paper beats arrogance. Truth beats wealth. And you, yes you, beat anyone who told you that you were nothing without their name. Until next time, stay strong, stay documenting, and keep building your peace. This is Amira Kareem, reminding you that quiet justice always speaks loudest in the end.